This morning we've brought our brokenness, buffered greatly by our togetherness. Here, honest about our broken hearts and a broken world. We know we're not alone. Together, we're transforming what is broken into something new. I've been thinking lately about how certain moments in our life divide it into before and after. Before having children, or before getting married, or before the diagnosis. In Florida, they're dealing with, in Parkland especially, dealing with this moment in which everything will be divided into before and after. I can't believe that we're sitting here heartbroken about children, youth, teenagers in our community again dead or grieving their dead comrades, hiding in closets in the school and running from gunfire and bullets. But it seems to be part of our everyday life now. And it makes no sense, and the political cowardice to do anything about it is absolutely ridiculous, and it's something we should all be ashamed of, and it's something that we all need to do something about. It's ridiculous that we're doing nothing. The only thing that has been done in this new administration since the last election is cutting mental health care and pulling back restrictions on gun ownership and purchasing. I don't want to get political up here. Actually, I do want to get political up there, but we all know something needs to be done. And I hope that we'll take what's broken in our hearts and broken in our society and do something with it. Henry Nouwen, the Catholic priest, said, when things get shattered in our lives, we can either cut ourselves over and over with the broken shards, or we can turn them into something new. In the Jewish tradition, from which some of my ancestors come, there's a saying of the Talmudic scholars that we must thank God in advance for our gifts that will be given, because most of the time we can't recognize the gifts when they arrive. Sometimes they seem like curses. Bo Lazoff, the author, tells the story of when he was 18 years old and he fell asleep while driving a compact car down the highway, and he ended up in a head-on collision with a tractor-trailer. He was lucky to be alive, though his injuries were severe: broken bones, ruptured spleen, fractured skull. And he took so much glass from the windshield into his face that shards of glass kept emerging onto the surface of his skin for almost 2 years afterward. He knew when he woke up in that hospital room that his life was changed forever. Lazoff writes, by some unseen grace, lying mangled in that hospital bed with tubes running in and out of every orifice, I gradually softened into humility rather than hardening into defeat. He realized that because of the damage to his face, that for the rest of his life he might be someone who people avoided. Insensitive people might keep their children away from him or call him a freak, even though he was the same person that he was before the accident on the inside of his skin. The intense physical pain lasted for almost 2 years. It became the center of his existence in so many ways. And at the same time, he became a seeker of a deeper truth. He wrote, "We cannot always choose what happens to us, but our lives will always reflect how we choose to respond to what happens to us. However great our tragedies, traumas, trials, we can choose a response that ennobles us and others or that diminishes us. We can choose creativity and humility over defeat." The mosaic artist Linda Allen, whose artwork is on display this morning, this beautiful piece she calls Eve, which she let us borrow, representing the new beginnings, made up, of course, out of broken pieces. She shared, I went out and talked to her this week in preparation for this message because I knew that I wanted to talk about this idea of brokenness and creating something new, and the mosaic was such a perfect metaphor. And she shared with me more about her story than I knew. Shortly after I met Linda, well over a decade ago, she was diagnosed with breast cancer, and soon after that, her marriage fell apart. She describes it was the hardest time of her life, but also looking back on it, she says it was one of the most meaningful and memorable times as well. With her health and her family seeming to be shattered before her eyes, she was also commissioned to create a few large public mosaic pieces. She described living in her studio for some time with boxes of all of her possessions piled up around her and trying to figure out how she was going to get through the day, let alone how she was going to create these massive works of art. She hired a crew of people to help her construct the mosaics, and she found a couple of TU students who were looking to make some money. They were art students, and also a friend who was also going through a tough time in her life. And they'd come each day into her studio. They actually helped her move her boxes to kind of create a space where she could have a little bedroom and a little privacy and some other things by creating walls with the boxes. And as these artists began working every day in this cramped space, they had to walk under the table in the mosaic to get from one spot to the other. They realized that they were living a metaphor within their real life story. As they assembled the pieces of stone and glass and porcelain into these giant works of art, they were also inadvertently piecing their own lives and hearts back together, and each other's. They all described this time now of creating the mosaic in this cramped studio as a profoundly healing time and experience. Linda herself has gone on to create some of the most renowned and colorful pieces of public art around our city, and her personal life has also come together in beautiful ways that she never could have imagined at that time. I think the Talmudic scholars are onto something about needing to offer our gratitude in advance, because we can't always recognize the gifts in our life when we receive them. When things feel broken and when they end, it's also a time of new beginnings. You know, I always think of the Jewish wedding ritual where they break a glass, you know, they wrap a glass in a handkerchief or a scarf, and they step on it and break it at the end of the ceremony. It's a symbol that it's shattered. It cannot be put back together. You have crossed the threshold. It will never be the same again. We are now into a new life and a new world, and you can't go back. So at the ending, it's also something new. We crash bottles over the bows of ships to christen them. We cut a cake. When we get married, we snip a ribbon. We have all these rituals of cutting and breaking that also symbolize a new beginning. But we don't always get to choose what happens to us. And we certainly can't turn back the hands of time. And so, no matter how hard we try, we find ourselves in difficult and painful circumstances, and yet there's always three freedoms that remain in our control. We get to decide how we react, what attitude we choose, and what meaning we're going to make of what's happened. These three always remain ours. We may never know why things happen. It's not really our role to know why, but it is our role to figure out what to do next. We always get to choose how we react, what our attitude is in any circumstance, and what meaning we make of what's happened. The problem is that when tragedies strike, we're overwhelmed with the pain, the hurt, the fear, the grief, and it's hard in those moments to always choose hope or life or a positive attitude. And that's why we often try to prepare ourselves in good times and in relatively calm moments of our lives to be prepared for moments when life comes unglued. And that's why there's this idea of spiritual practice. It's like we practice when we're not in the midst of a tragedy or a trial. So I think that the Talmudic scholars were on to that when they said, we say this prayer, we should say this prayer every day, giving thanks for the gifts which are to come, knowing that we won't recognize them. We may not know that they're gifts, but this is a way of having a daily ritual of reminder so that when difficulty strikes, there's this recognition deep in ourself about what life is about and what's possible. The Persian poet Rumi says it this way in his poem, Guest House. This being human is a guest house. Every moment a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them all at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whatever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. This idea of trying to meet each moment and find something in it that we can transform into something new. I'm not so sure about the why, even in the poem, of that it's somehow came from some divine source or why these things happen, but I do know that we do get to choose what happens, and when we choose life and when we choose creativity and when we choose humility and meaning that makes sense and ennobles us and others around us, that helps redeem whatever we're going through. Mahatma Gandhi said a mantra over and over every day of his life. A mantra is a repetition of some word or phrase. It literally means mind protector. He used one of the most common mantras in India. He said Ram, which is one of the names of God for Hindus. And at the end of his life, when he was shot by an assassin's bullet, he said, Jai Ram, hail God. He didn't say, how could you? He didn't yell and swear and call the man names. He died with the words, hail God, on his lips. The whole point of spiritual practice is just that, to practice, to create habits and routines of thinking and being. It's a way of repeatedly centering ourselves and protecting our mind against the temptations to cynicism and despair. So if you don't have some kind of what might be deemed a spiritual practice that you do regularly or struggle to do regularly, I want to encourage you to look for something like that, because I know you'll need it. I know I've needed it in my own life. One of the things that I think is a great practice that we offer here at All Souls is our Soulful Circles groups. And if you're not in one of the small groups, it's an incredible way to get in touch with your understanding of who you are with some other people from this open and accepting and affirming community. Now here's something that I'm doing right now. You may know that this past Wednesday was Ash Wednesday. It's the beginning of Lent in the Christian calendar. And it's a season of 40 days prior to Easter when Christians are asked to go inward, to look inside and to prepare themselves with the idea that we have to cultivate the soil of our own hearts and our own souls in order to have the rebirth and the renewal of spring and Easter. And so some people will fast or give up something during the Lenten season as a way of remembering that they're in this period of time. I've taken up the practice of, instead of giving up something, taking up something new, which I guess means giving up a little bit of my time because I'm doing something different. And so what I'm doing is I'm starting to do a mantra practice daily. And of course, some people use the names of God from different traditions in Hebrew and Sanskrit or other kinds of things. Some people use affirmations like life is good or there's good in every day, and they just say it each morning for 5 or 10 minutes, and then every time they think of it during the course of the day. So for the next 40 days, what I'm repeating over and over each morning and every time it comes into my awareness are the words, love beyond belief. It's been wonderful so far. I've caught myself at different points during my day, finding myself believing that things are falling apart, or believing that the world is imploding and that violence is rampant, or that believing that materialism has run amok. But no matter what I find myself thinking or believing, and no matter what the people around me believe, I'm constantly reminded that my job is love. To be love, to bring love, to share love. And here I am, sharing my love with you. Together, we're taking what is broken and creating something new. What other choice do we really have? No other good ones, but to love. We're doing it interpersonally, but we're also doing it by creating this mosaic this morning in the church in a really tangible way. If you have not gone to the back, grabbed a piece of paper, and added to this beautiful piece that we're creating this morning, you got one more song. We're about to sing a hymn. I want you to take a moment to go back. There's still some room. Put some colors and add to the mosaic as we sing our final hymn, Morning Has Broken. We're going to reveal this work that we've created in just a moment. Just remember, every moment of every day we get to choose. Choose love. Amen.
visiting with us online today. We love connecting with people all across the country and around the world, sharing our powerful message of love beyond belief.
There's something new happening here. You can now join All Souls as a virtual member. Our virtual membership is designed for friends who live outside of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and who want to engage with All Souls in a meaningful way.
You can be part of an expanding family, a global family really, wherever you are. If you live in Oklahoma,
Ohio,
or Orange County, California,
Canada,
or Cameroon. By becoming a virtual member, you'll be able to deepen your connections with members and friends here in Tulsa and with members wherever you are.
Each week, you'll receive special All Souls content tailored for you, our virtual members. Virtual members have access to pastoral care, to personal prayers, and also receive invitations to exclusive web events.
You can learn more, and if you're ready, you can become a virtual member today by visiting allsoulschurch.org/virtual membership.
We're grateful our ministries are having a positive impact on your life, and we want to share the good news of love beyond belief with more and more people. So no matter what, we need your support to keep this ministry growing and thriving, so please consider making a gift today. You can do so by texting
LOVEBB for Love Beyond Belief to 73256, or simply visit our website. You are a blessing in our lives. May you be blessed.
And be a blessing.